Welcome to Screw the Stock Market. We're very happy to have you join us today. Again, this is the show where we talk about alternative investments outside of the stock market, outside of the 401k, outside of the mutual funds. We're focused on taking control of our finances so that we can take control of our lives today and take control of our futures tomorrow. So today we have with us Jon Ostenson, and he is a franchise consultant. He helps someone like you or me or Aziz to figure out which franchise is the best one for us at which time, if any, and he helps us navigate that process. It's a really good show. We've already had other franchise folks on the show, but he provides a different take on it. He provides some other really juicy tidbits where there's pretty much something that blew my mind, blew Aziz's mind. What'd you think of it,
Oh, it
Aziz?
was it was good. It was shocking. I didn't. Yeah, as Alex is kind of teasing out there, he discusses an aspect that helps you kind of tap into more wealth and utilize it for purchasing your franchises, which I never knew you could do. But it's amazing, and the episode is a good one. Unlike our previous past episode on franchises, he kind of gets a little bit more into the nitty gritty. Kind of describes the process. He describes the numbers. He gives examples from some of the businesses that he's worked with directly and some of the audited numbers that were presented to him by some of the major franchise companies. So it's good. It's interesting, and it just kind of whets my appetite for this whole franchise idea even more.
So it's a good one. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get a lot from it. And as always, I really want to encourage you to engage with us. Our email for the show is info@screwthestockmarket.com. And we welcome feedback. We welcome ideas. We welcome potential guests, people. If you want to be on the show, or if you know someone who should be on the show, invite us and connect us. And we want to just really start to encourage more engagement. And we want to make the show as useful as possible for you. So please reach out and start to connect with us. We're going to start to get more and more focused on that in the future. So without further ado, enjoy the show, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you all.
Okay, Jon Ostenson, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you on the show. We are excited to learn more about franchising and all the opportunities that are involved in that, especially non-food franchises. So we hear you're the guy to talk to. Thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, appreciate you guys having me on the show. I love the show and looking forward to a great conversation.
Well, excellent. Well, normally, at the beginning of the show, what we ask is if you can touch a little bit on your personal life and kind of where you are, where you came from, who you are, and how you got to be where you're at. And then we'll jump into the actual content of, in your case, franchises and maybe some of the lessons and opportunities that you'd be interested in sharing with our audience.
Perfect.
Care to kick it off?
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great. So based here in Atlanta, Georgia, with my wife and 3 young kids, and live in Buckhead here in Atlanta, and active in the community, but really live and breathe all things franchising, in particular non-food franchising, and we'll get into that in more detail. But what brought me to that point, looking back a number of years, like so many of your listeners, started my career in the corporate world after college, and did the consulting route, got to do some neat international ventures, and did the grad school, checked the box MBA, and then had a nice corporate career doing something that I never thought I'd be doing. Worked for Carter's and Oshkosh B'gosh, large children's apparel company, and had some neat opportunities with those guys. We were recently a public company, and could have stayed there forever and had the golden handcuffs, but around 6 years ago, broke free and had that entrepreneurial bent. And for me, didn't know what that looked like, but the first step was stepping in with ShelfGenie franchise system, and stepped in as president, large national franchise system, led all of our teams across North America, supporting our franchise owners. And for me, it was a very pivotal experience to understand, hey, there are different paths to business ownership, and that franchising is much more than just fast food, which a lot of people, certainly, denote it with. So long story short, ended up partnering with the founder of ShelfGenie. We've spun off, we've invested in franchises ourselves now on the franchisee side. We're just big fans of the franchise model, and I've brought in other partners over time, and we've invested in franchises as well. So multi-brand franchisee myself, and but we've been able to put good people in place running the businesses for us, and allows us to spend more of our time now helping others do the same. So get the opportunity to head up FranBridge Consulting. We work with about 600 franchise brands across the country, constantly adding new ones to our fold, ones that we vetted, feel really strongly about from a competitive advantage standpoint in their market niche, their leadership teams, their financial models. And then we work with individuals, helping them connect with these brands. And it's a great model. It's entirely free for our clients. And what we do is we provide a lot of education and help play matchmaker. So absolutely love what I get to do, and really parlays based off of what I've had the chance to do myself.
Wow, that's amazing. So are you a franchisee of ShelfGenie, or did you branch off into other franchises of your own?
Into other franchises. So there are about 5 or 6 at last count that I'm invested in. A lot of those I'll get on a weekly touch base call and chat with our general manager, maybe a little bit of texting throughout the week, and maybe meet for a drink or dinner once a month. So it's a model that we've been able to help a lot of our clients get into as well. And it comes down to having a good operator. I mean, someone that you trust to run the day-to-day operations. But the nice thing about franchising is you are able to step in, and the burden's not entirely on you to oversee and coach this manager that's running the business for you. But you've got that franchisor and their team also supporting the franchisee that they can go to again. So it doesn't all rest on you.
Yeah, that's really exciting because, I'll say the picture you paint is exactly where I think I'd like to be, where a lot of our listeners would like to be able to know that you have some income, you have this asset that's producing income for you and your family, and it's not really dependent on your work day in and day out. And, the franchise model, the image I always had, because I think it was Shaquille O'Neal is the guy who I've heard of, is like one of the, he's already wealthy. He's a famous basketball player, and he's got loads of money. And then he took that money and invested it into a bunch of other franchises. And so now he's building, multiplying his wealth through that. But I always had that impression of, you have to be wealthy to even get into this game. So can you tell me a little bit about how someone who might, still have their 9-to-5 job, they might have had a few years of work experience and kind of some savings, but they're not ready to retire. They're not ready to buy a yacht and retire off of the Caribbean. So how can someone like that get to this point? Like, tell me a little bit more about some first steps that you'd recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'll start out by saying, I don't mean to make it sound too easy, because, there's definitely some heavy lifting in the beginning. If you don't have the right person in place, you're going to have more headaches, and it doesn't totally de-risk the business ownership equation. But I mean, the stats show that 92% of franchises that launch are still in business 5 years later, which you can't say that about most startups. And so I'd say it's a little overwhelming to start. There's about 4,000 franchise brands out there. For me, I feel that there are easier ways to make money than food that require less capital up front, that maybe fewer hourly employees, less hours of operation, less inventory spoilage. There's a lot of ways to make money, but I'd say 95% of my clients want nothing to do with food. Now, I'm very thankful for the 5% that do, like food, because we need them. But no, these others are waking up to the idea that there are so many other opportunities. We see people in, there's been nothing hotter over the past couple of years than home and property services. $600 billion market with a lot of niches, a lot of competitive advantage models within there. Certainly a lot of interest in health and wellness and fitness, and that we're still doing oil change deals, the auto space, and what are businesses that people are going to continue spending on even during a recession or economic challenges out there, which we all know are there's some dark clouds on the economy. It's things like kids and pets, your health, your home. I mean, those are the aging population, your parents. I mean, those are businesses that need to be catered to in groups, and so there are a lot of different models. And what's fun for me is about 90% of my clients end up in a field that they never thought they would be in, because they frankly didn't know about it. So for me, I love peeling back the onion and kind of understanding, what would make sense for their setup and their market and with their background, as well as what's resonating with others around the country. I mean, we're fortunate we do more deals than about 99% of other brokers out there. So it gives us great visibility into what is resonating with different backgrounds, different types of people. So happy to dig into the process too, Alex, as to how we go about it.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you're saying that food is not the way to go. We had another franchise expert, Kim Daly, on the show previously, and she said the exact same thing. Avoid the food. God bless those who do it, but there's better and easier ways of making money in the franchise game beyond food. Which begs the question. I mean, what's the incentive for those people who do go into the food industry to do so? If there are easier ways of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have clients that own 100 Wendy's or 100 Arby's. I mean, yeah, I think there's economies of scale once you build it large enough. However, early on, if you're trying to open a couple of things, you're going to end up having to be a lot more hands-on. And so, you know, we see all sorts of backgrounds now, and oftentimes franchisors prefer for you not to have industry experience. And so, I think about, we just had a Wall Street attorney outside of Boston buy a gutter business with just crazy strong financials. Actually, we've actually done a couple of deals in the gutter space. We had a engineer in Indianapolis buy a business coaching franchise. We had a client in Birmingham, Alabama buy a cost reduction analyst business that works with small and medium-sized businesses to help them reduce their expenses. We've done a couple of deals in the waste management space, whether it be dumpsters or trucks that crush waste in the dumpster. In almost every case, our clients have come back and bought additional locations in their businesses. But we've done commercial property management or real estate property management. Really, the only business that hasn't worked, the only client that we placed where it didn't work out was a client about 3 hours outside of Nashville that wanted to operate in Nashville, but he didn't have any boots on the ground. And, he bought a mosquito business. And I think that's a very competitive space. And he didn't really have friends and family in the market, that grassroots effort to get it off the ground. And he could have stuck with it. But about 3 months in, he said, hey, I think this is going to be a little more effort than I thought it would be. I'm going to throw in the towel, and he parted ways on good terms. But by and large, I mean, we see our clients coming back and buying additional locations for almost every business, and it's not just people. From a demographic standpoint, they're looking to retire. We certainly have a lot of people that say, "Hey, got a little too much gray in my hair. I really don't want to go interview and work for someone else. I'd really, love to jump in here." But we have, we've done deals year to date with people in their 20s and their 30s and 40s, and certainly 50s. Many of whom say, hey, the stock market's up and down and only so many good real estate deals to be had. And outside of crypto, which doesn't necessarily provide any safety, where else am I going to invest? I mean, as you guys know, we got record levels of cash on the sidelines. And as a business owner, having that as a piece of your portfolio, you get, the potential income stream. You're building an asset that's going to be you'll be able to exit down the road if you run it halfway decent. And you're able to write off expenses that you couldn't as a W-2 employee. So, once people start putting the pieces together, it really is compelling.
Now, I did have some question regarding the real estate aspect of the franchising process. Now that you mentioned the real estate game, so one of the things that I've heard in the past is that a lot of franchises they'll help you buy the facility and whatnot if you do need like a physical brick and mortar location, but the end result is you're buying the building, but not the land that it sits on. So that could cause some issues in terms of if you try to sell the business in the future or anything of that in that regards, you won't get as much profits back from that property. Is that true, or is there ways around that?
Yeah, every model's different. A lot of the deals that we're doing right now with our clients, there is no real estate component where, if they do, we certainly have customer facing retail businesses. Usually that's just a lease. There's no real estate as a part of that transaction with a franchisor. But we have a lot of businesses where they don't require a physical location. They're remote. And if they do have physical locations on the back end, it's a small, maybe industrial space. But there are some unique hybrid models out there. We just did a 10-unit oil change deal where it's a business that has an investor group behind it, and you can get in for $150,000. It's prefabricated buildings that use unused parking spaces in a retail or shopping center. So you're able to get in at a much lower price because you're leasing the building from the franchisor's investment group, and then you're staffing it with 2 people and running it. And I can dig into that one more. I mean, it's great returns. $330 revenue per location, $130 bottom line on an investment of $150. Very much a semi-absentee type model. So yeah, that's an example of where they can come into play. I'd say again, the food is spaces where you do have a little more of a real estate situation. Yet, for us, more than 75% of our clients have real estate investments as well. So they're businesses that can complement those as well as help diversify from them.
we go into that oil change one? That sounded
Yeah.
pretty interesting. Could
Yeah,
you?
those numbers sounded amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, we all know electric cars are coming, but in 15 years from now, less than 10% of cars on the road will be electric. I mean, the average age of cars on the road is 12 years. So there's still a long road ahead, no pun intended, for the oil change industry. Now, if you're in California, things might be a little bit different, but I think in a lot of states, there's still a really good market. Now, there's competition out there, but gosh, I mean, I bet you can outperform the Jiffy Lube down the street. And yes, this is a model. They focus on the core oil change and adjacent services. They don't get into all the additional upsold items. So you have less staffing, less inventory, very much a semi-absentee type model. And there are others like that. There's one that we're really excited about right now to kind of share some of those characteristics. It's a testing facility. They're the first and largest non-medical testing facility for drug testing, alcohol testing, DNA testing, a whole list of things, but they work primarily B2B with businesses. Like the Department of Transportation requires all their employees to be drug tested every so often. A lot of businesses, when they're hiring or continually, they have drug testing. Well, their proposition is, small retail footprint, very low build out cost, one employee at a time. They're able to turn results around much faster. So someone comes in, pardon my French, leaves a specimen in a cup. They have sensors on the cup that are proprietary that detect traces of XYZ drugs or what have you in there. And then they QR code the results immediately to the employer. And so you're not having to send it off to an outside lab for 48, 72 hours turnaround. Instead, you're able to get instant results, which is a strong customer value proposition to you, the owner. This is a business you can get in for as low as 100 to 120,000 per location, potentially using an SBA loan where you can leverage up part of that cost. And then they're kicking off. Don't hold me to this, but this is their number that's audited. 585 in average revenue, with about 200 hitting the bottom line if you run it as an owner operator. Now, if you pay someone to essentially run it for you and call it 60,000, maybe 70,000 on the high side that you take off of that, there's still a lot of meat on the bone.
It's more than a lot of meat. What is this company called?
It's called Fastest Labs, and we've got an exclusive partnership with them. So yeah, I encourage everyone. We're trying to get our clients first in line because we do think they're going to go pretty fast. They've got about 70 locations today, and we can kind of work some things on the back angle to get our customers first in line.
Amazing.
Yeah,
that's I mean, we live in the DC area, so the government is always constantly doing testing for all the federal employees in this area. So I can imagine just make a killing off something like that.
Yeah, but so it's kind of businesses that would never be top of mind until you dig in, and
never would have thought of that. Yeah. Okay, so I'm curious too, just kind of from another side of it, which is the idea of, I have people in my network who are just entrepreneurs who start businesses themselves. I've never thought about it until now, is the idea of a franchise model for a startup. Like, what would you recommend for someone who wanted to start an idea to eventually become a good franchisor, right? To be on the other side of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen good
That's
examples and bad examples. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Like anything, they're not all created equal. And I've certainly learned a few things. I actually just did a video series for the Entrepreneurs Organization last week because we're getting that question a lot. And we've had a lot of companies that we've helped kind of enter the franchising process. We don't personally take companies through the process, but we have a great partner that does. But we can kind of tee that up because, and share pros and cons of becoming a franchisor. Now, I'd say that the positives are, you're essentially using other people's money to scale, people who actually have skin in the game, which you always want your team to have skin in the game. They know their local markets, they're incentivized. Private equity absolutely loves franchising. So, I get calls every day from firms saying, hey, do you know any young franchisors that would be open to being acquired or invested in? Private equity just loves the franchise model. So it can help you build towards an exit. What I'd say on the downside is, you do wake up one day and you realize you've got kids across the country that have expectations of you, and you're trying to keep them playing nice and happy, and so you do have to make sure that you staff up on the support side. If someone's buying into your business, it is a huge responsibility, in my opinion, to make sure that you're supporting them and really setting them up for success.
Now, one question I do have is in regards to the staffing for a lot of these businesses. What level, I mean, again, if you're coming into this with no background in this industry or this particular franchise business that you're purchasing, what level of support do you get in terms of hiring and training staff to run the business for you? So it's not a case of the blind leading the blind, so to speak.
Yeah, great question. So, that is top of mind for a lot of people, especially in this environment. All my clients say, "Hey, what delivers the highest return on
Yeah.
investment with the fewest number of employees?" And I think they've always asked that. But um, the franchisor definitely leans in heavy on that, and that's where your interests are aligned, and even more so that they want you to be successful. And oftentimes, I mean, you can send your general manager off to training; they'll usually train them, at no cost. You might have to pay for the airfare or what have you, but they'll train your key team members who then train those beneath them. But now they've got the execution plan, the operations manual, everything that you need. They help you know where to find these employees. And there are some franchisors out there. I was talking with one last week that actually has their in-house recruitment department. I'd say that's not normal, but you do have some cases where they'll actually help recruit people for you.
Okay.
For your team, especially when it's a more specialized type industry.
Okay, great. So like something like the testing lab thing would be like that be a company where they have like a specialized recruiting team, or would you see
You don't have to have a medical background in that business because it's non-medical. You don't have to deal with HIPAA and all the other requirements. And so that's a unique, from an ownership standpoint. But I think there is a certification that they would put your employees through, kind of a training and call it a certification around it.
Interesting.
Oh, cool. Okay, so again, going back to our theoretical audience member, and I always kind of imagine myself maybe 5 years ago, right? Like, hey, I'm in a job which maybe I don't want to be in for the rest of my life, but I don't know. So again, imagine we're talking to me 5 years ago, and what would be the first step? What do you recommend for me?
Yeah. It's overwhelming if you go out to the websites and start Googling around, what you're going to find is every company's putting their best marketing message forward, and you're really not going to get to see behind the scenes. And I mean, we've had companies that, recently moved from Canada down to the US, and if you go to their website, they don't show any US locations, but they've actually done 40 deals in the past 3 months, and so we kind of know what's going on the back end because we work with all the different development groups across the country, all the brands that are worth working with, we're partners with. And so I'd say the way our process works, again, entirely no cost. I'd say as a first step, come out to our website. We'll provide you with some great information, through our newsletter. We have a book coming out in September that I'd love to get a copy to all of your audience members. But no, the way the process works is we've tried to streamline it and make it as efficient and effective as possible where Alex in DC, hey, I'm interested in exploring franchises. We get on a call, ask some questions, have you fill out a little bit of information, really create a profile of, kind of what you're looking for. I then take that and I look at what's others with similar backgrounds around the US, what's resonating with them, why did they like these other types of opportunities? And I pull together maybe 10 opportunities for your consideration. We get on a Zoom call, I share my screen, we walk through. Here's what I see as the 10 best opportunities in your market for your situation, whether you're running it yourself or you're putting manager in place, all financials, everything else. We walk through those. You pick your top 3 or 4 out of the gate that look up most interesting. I make an introduction to franchisors. You have a call with them. Afterwards, you'll probably say, hey, Jon, that one's not for me. Let's delete that one. But every conversation you have with the franchisor is going to give you more information into that framework you're looking for. How do you compare option A versus option B? And and you may say, hey, I really like what this one shared. Do you have any other businesses that have characteristics similar to that? So I can bring more opportunities in through the process. But the key is to stay focused on what we see are the top ones. And franchisor will take you through introductory call, financial call, their FDD, the franchise disclosure document review. You get to do validation where you talk to other owners within the franchise system and hear about their experience. And then it culminates in what's called the discovery day or confirmation day, where you spend a day or day and a half on site with the franchisor and their home office team, getting all your questions answered. You're getting to know them, they're getting to know you, make sure it's a good fit before you make that final decision. And we kind of hold our clients' hands with touch bases through the process, help you think about the funding side of it, and all the other components.
Very cool. That's a pretty clear explanation of the step, right? I'm
Yeah.
interested in it. Let's do it. And okay, but then how about this? For most people, including myself, I think the first objection or the first kind of like what I was mentioning, Shaquille O'Neal, right? He's a millionaire. What am I supposed to do? I don't have that kind of money. So
Yeah.
you mentioned a few examples of smaller amounts that are needed to buy in, but can you tell us a little bit about just in general, kind of how do you know if you can even start down this path?
Yeah, every now and then we have someone that comes, with a lower net worth, and I encourage them, hey, now's not the best time for you to step out. Let's take a little more time to build up the reserves. But I'd say if your net worth is at least 150, obviously the further north of that, the more comfortable you'll be. But I'd say at least 150. If you're below that, it's probably not the right time. But no, there are a lot of ways to fund the business. So 75% of the deals that we do with our clients fall between 125,000 and 300,000 from an all-in investment standpoint, including working capital. We certainly have some much larger and some, a little bit smaller, but that's where the kind of sweet spot is, maybe that 150 to 200 mark. And then I'd say about a third of our clients use cash to fund the purchase. Another third would use cash and an SBA loan. We've got a great SBA partner that helps us. And then the other third would use one of a few things. It could be a retirement plan rollover called the ROBS program. It could be a HELOC if that's where you have good home equity, or it could be a portfolio loan, which I'm a big fan of personally. Borrowing against your brokerage account, non-retirement brokerage account, and I mean that's probably where you're going to find the lowest interest rate. And again, we have a partner that can help out with those. So that's kind of how we see people approaching it, and that's kind of the ballpark from an investment standpoint.
Okay. All that. Well, two questions following up with that. So the SBA are these the same SBA? I've heard about these SBA loans where they have 10% down. Is that the same SBA program, or are they still maybe just a similar one with maybe 20? I don't know.
Is it like a specialized program?
Yeah, I'd assume 20 to 25% is a rule of thumb, typically. So if it's 150 all in, then maybe you're putting in, call it 45, 50,000.
That's still great.
Yeah.
And then can I ask a little bit more about this portfolio loan that you mentioned? I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. In fact, I use one myself because it's a no-brainer. So portfolio loan and there are different terms for it, but essentially if you have assets in a brokerage account that's a non-retirement account, you can borrow against that account up to 50 or 60%. So for me, what I'll do is I'll take a couple $100,000, as a loan against my brokerage account, not having to sell any positions. I'll take that. I'm borrowing that at 1.5% right now. Now it's variable; it will go up, but still today it's 1.5%. I'm taking that, and I can use it for any purpose other than public security. So what I do is I then put it into franchise businesses or into like real estate lending. I do a lot of real estate lending, at 12, 13, 14%. So if I'm getting 12%, I'm borrowing at 1.5%. It's definitional arbitrage. So my financial advisor never told me about this. I kind of had to find this hack myself, and now I try to share it with others. But now we've got a guy, Walt Hammond, up at Cedar Valley Capital in Charlotte that helps a lot of our clients. He can turn these around really fast. He's kind of an expert in the space.
Could we have his contact information and invite him on the show?
Yeah.
I think he belongs on the show. Absolutely. That's something I've never heard of.
You blew my mind with that one. That's a game changer.
Aziz has money.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Alex, ping me. Yeah, ping me, and I'll send you his contact information, and we'll.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow.
A good guy.
See, that's the stuff. Like it's always these little. I mean that was something you kind of mentioned offhand, but that's something that I never heard of. That's really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Jon, you've shared a ton with us. You mentioned the book. Tell us a little bit more about the book.
Yeah, no, really excited. I mean, we end up, doing a lot of speaking engagements, and we write a lot of articles for different publications, but we're kind of pulling all that together in one place. With this book, it's called Non-Food Franchising. It's in the editing process right now. We've got a team working on it, and really excited to release. It's coming out in September, and it's an easy read, a little over 100 pages, but it kind of hits on everything that you really need to know to get the juices flowing and kind of help fill in the gaps in understanding, and it helps you understand, is franchising right for you? And, it's not right for everyone, but for a lot of people, it is a better path to business ownership. And there's just boxes that it checks. And so anyway, we'd love to share a copy with any of your listeners. If you come out to our website, FranBridgeConsulting.com, sign up for our newsletter. We put out some good content every month. Sign up for our free newsletter, and we'll make sure to get a copy of the book to you when it releases in September.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. Thank you for that. I know I'll sign up, and we'll make sure to share that link in the notes, so that
Absolutely.
we can, Aziz, if you can remember to put that link in the notes for us. Yeah.
I did have one question that's kind of, I don't know, it might be subjective, but in your opinion, what do you think is the best franchise option? Like in terms of all the different franchise business, which one do you prefer the most, personally, at least?
Where we've invested is primarily the home and property services space. My favorite little one that I'm invested in right now is a driveway company where we don't even have to market. There's such demand. They find our website. So we've seen a lot of interest in home services, whether it be insulation or dumpsters or, the Serve Pro type models. I kind of joke that non-sexy is the new sexy. People want understandable, non-trendy cash flowing businesses, waste management, property services. That's what people like. But then, I'd say in the health and wellness space, there's some cutting edge options out there, whether it be custom orthotics that use 3D printing or, IV drips. We just did a 10-unit IV drip, one that started by some doctors. It's differentiated from everyone else out there in the market. So it really just depends. I mean, you can get some big numbers with businesses like roofing and, but that's not for everybody. But again, if you think about it with a business owner hat on, what are the needs in the market? Who are my end customers? Even like a Serve Pro type business. I mean, that's a B2B business, even though you're serving consumers, because you're dealing with insurance companies and property managers. We're working with a company right now in the waste management space that has a patented app that kind of Uberizes the junk removal component, also has valet and concierge trash removal. And so, it's these little businesses that are growing fast that are getting a lot of attention and, or not getting a lot of attention until they do. And then all of a sudden they just take off. I mean, I mentioned insulation. We had a business in that space go from 5 locations to 250 in about 18 months.
18 months?
Once the word gets out there and you've got something special and something proprietary and you operate in a large market that maybe bringing a white collar approach to a blue collar industry, I mean, these things can take off.
Wow. And is the marketing for these businesses on you, or is that something the franchise company?
In most cases, the franchisor's got a team and or a preferred vendor that they're liaising with. It's all set up. They've got the marketing collateral for you. They've got the website day one. It's still, if you can do some organic posting, some grassroots type advertising, yard signs or driving a vehicle around with it, that's just going to help the cause. I had 2 clients sign deals last week for a fence and rail business. It's the largest fencing company in the U.S. They've got all the buying power. They can buy things at 20 to 30% discounts. They've got a national account with Home Depot. And so as a result, their franchisees average, and this is not normal, but I'll just give an example of what's not normal. 1.7 million a year in revenue in the first year, 2.7 in year 2, 3.8 in year 3. And that's on probably, the margins for their franchisees are between 10 and 20%. Let's call it 15% on average. But you're able to get out of the gate fast because you've got Home Depot sending you all their fence leads in their market. So, it's things like that once people realize that oftentimes it's a no-brainer. A lot of our clients are business owners. They're saying, hey, I'd love to complement or diversify from my core business, but I know how hard it is to get something new off the ground. I'd rather start on third base instead of first base.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that really resonates, I've had a ton of ideas and it's really hard to get them going. And the appeal of just having that guidance and that, you mentioned the alignment of the interests between the franchisor and the franchisees is appealing to know you have kind of a team behind you.
Yeah.
You do. You also have other franchisees in other markets, and you're trading best practices. And, again, I'll say franchising is not right for everyone. If you are too entrepreneurial and you can't stay within the lines, I've got some entrepreneurs that say, hey, this isn't going to be a good fit for you. But for a lot of them, they say, I've been there, done that. I'd much rather not have to recreate the wheel second time around here.
Now, I do wonder about that. How passive can it really be, though? From our past conversations, it's like nothing is entirely passive. But if you are just an investor, you've got the cash, you just want another revenue source, you don't have the time, to be putting in this amount. Is that possible with most of these franchises, particularly the high earning ones, or is it something that's a little bit more difficult to accomplish?
Yeah, the two fence example deals that we just did in the fences, those are guys that own existing businesses. Now they're putting someone they trust over the day-to-day operations. And so you can be given the keys and the car, but you still have to have a driver. And so, that operator, and that's probably what we spend a lot of time discussing, really, because our clients say, hey, where do I find them? How do I incentivize them? One of my clients, Nathan Bocock in South Carolina, he's the largest franchisee of 2 Men and a Truck moving service, operates $30 million business in 10 markets. Well, he and I have done a couple of deals last couple of years where, he's brought in a young guy from his church, 26, 27 years old, someone that he trusts, and says, hey, I'll actually give you real equity in one of these new franchise purchases. Go make us proud. And in every case, he's come back and bought additional locations. So, and actually, I have Nathan now coaching some of our clients, helping them kind of get out the gate strong. So it can definitely be done. I mean, I do it myself, very semi-absentee. But I will say, if you think it's going to take you 5 hours, it's probably going to take you 10 hours. You definitely want to plan conservatively going in. And I'd say don't try to start two things at once. I think it's smart to, I've been there and done that. I think it's smarter to try to start one at a time and stand it up, get it in a good place, and then go for number two.
Now, in terms of like working with you, for example, in terms to kind of identify and establish, would you recommend that most people already kind of, if they don't have the full funding available, that they should go and get like the SBA loans and all those things in advance prior to coming to you? Or is that something that you'll walk them through and just kind of just bring yourself?
Yeah, I'd say, again, just using that kind of benchmark, if your net worth all in is 150 or above, not that you're putting that into a business, but that's just kind of your assets minus liabilities. You can even include home equity there. If that's your case, that or above that, then you're qualified, to buy into a number of these. I mean, there's some that have higher requirements, but no, you don't have to have SBA lined up. So again, if your net worth kind of hits that mark or higher, the SBA we can help you with on the back end. You wouldn't be able to get that an SBA loan until you actually have a business. You have to show them a business plan to be able to get that
Gotcha.
loan.
One last question. You mentioned earlier that a lot of the times that you've invested, I'm not sure if you've partnered up with other people, and you've mentioned that a few times. So, for my deals that I've done in real estate, I've done the syndication model where I take passive investor money and put that towards a bigger apartment building than I can afford or than they could afford individually. And is that kind of model applicable, or can it be applied to franchising, where maybe instead of buying a $200,000 franchise, I could buy a $2 million franchise, and there might be some benefits to getting something bigger right away?
Oh, it can absolutely, no. And I've partnered with people, and we do see a lot of partnerships for sure. One thing that I've had a lot of clients say, hey, can you go run the franchises for me? Like, can your team go handle it? And, we just are totally passive. I just don't want to do that. I beta tested a little bit of that, but I don't want to be beholden to investors. I don't need investors. So I don't personally do that. But no, we have a lot of situations where it's someone with money, and maybe it's their son-in-law that they say, hey, we're going to sponsor them, essentially let them go run it. We do have a lot of cases. I was talking with the client this afternoon. He's like, hey, I'm planning on buying 4 locations of XYZ business. This is a parking lot maintenance business. There's non-sexy for you. But it's a great little business. But he said, I mentioned another guy that's looking at the business in the same area as him. He's like, I know that guy. We could potentially partner together and then go bigger. So no, that's definitely a possibility. That whole idea.
Now, is there a template for those types of things? Like, I know, for example, Alex and I, we're part of like different investing groups and things like that, where we invest collectively with other people. So is there a template or something in terms of how to work out like a kind of like a collective investment group for a franchise or anything like that?
I mean, the franchise is still going to want, to have essentially a lead, or maybe it's partners signing off. I mean, they don't want it just being thrown into a black hole of, hey, we have 20 people that are going to be managing the business. That doesn't give them a lot of confidence. So I think that the key is, I've got some clients that will say, hey, let me find a few investors to back me. I've beta tested threading the needle of, trying to find investors to match up with certain operators. And then they have to both like the business, and then they have to come to terms. I'm like, there's too much complexity to it. But if you can figure out that piece on your own, I mean, we've got operating agreements that we've used, that other people could leverage, where we've done partnerships and, including some different clauses in those operating agreements. So I'd say that is as close to a template, but no, I can certainly share case studies of where, like we have some clients down the road from you guys, the bond to a business 4 territories, and it's like 3 people bought into it. One of them is the operating partner. I've had that situation where I've bought into someone with 2 partners. Unfortunately, partnerships are great till they're not. I've seen both sides of it, and fortunately, I've got great partners now. But sometimes partners don't end up being who you think they are, and so lots of lessons.
Are franchise companies less likely to work with you in those types of situations if they see that you're coming in with like a collective or a partnership group, as opposed to
not as long, again, as long as they know who's running the day-to-day operations. Right. And I think if they have a single point of contact, their best practices, like they don't want to go to 5 different people. Like this guy manages financial, this manages this. Like they want to deal with one person, right, ideally, or 2 people. That have different roles. So if they know who the go-to is and they have confidence that someone's looking after the business, full time, if it's not you, that's the key.
Okay.
Very cool. Well, Jon, I guess I'll just let you, if there's any last message that you'd really like to share with our audience to help them either get motivated or understand that this is something that they can do, I'll let you close us out. Yeah. But thank you so much for being with us. And sharing all this. This is really practical, really actionable stuff. Pretty much step 1 is call Jon, and he'll pretty much walk you through to figure out if and which would be the way to go when it comes to franchise. Thank you so much, man. Really.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on. And yeah, just in closing, I'd say, what we're seeing on the ground right now is I've never seen so much interest. There are economic headwinds and dark clouds out there, but a lot of people are realizing, and everyone's psychology is different. Some people are saying, hey, maybe I need to preserve some cash. I mean, I've had a few clients do that. But so many more are saying, hey, now's as good of a time as ever. And there are a lot of businesses that will do well in spite of inflation and consumer sentiment, or will do well as a result of that. So, I think a lot of it comes down to psychology. But right now, I mean, record levels of cash on the sidelines, people looking for homes for it. And, it's been fun for us. I mean, we've been able to help a lot of people, and they're excited about what's ahead. And yeah, we'd love to get a copy of the book to all of you. Come out to our website, sign up for the newsletter, and
if you can share the website again, Jon, so everyone.
FranBridgeConsulting.com. That's FRAN bridgeconsulting.com, and sign up for our newsletter there on the website, and we'll get a copy of the book to you. And if you have an interest in chatting as well, happy to get on a quick phone call and chat.
Good stuff. Well, thank you again. We definitely appreciate your time and for all the info. Again, you blew my mind some aspects there. I think I have some more research to do, and I'm definitely pursuing this idea. I'm really excited about this franchise concept.
Absolutely. No, thanks again, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Jon.